I'm Scott Ramsey. You are.
I'm Brian Olea. You're Mr. Mayhem. And
Hugh Hefner,
Mayhem
a true
continues.
American icon, created an empire that was unrivaled.
Although some of his bunnies may have gone rogue, it's because of the love and respect that we received from the man behind it all.
The Rogue Bunnies' mission is simple: 100 playmates taking control of their valuable IP, while honoring Hef's iconic Playboy style and bringing that experience to our collectors.
Like only we know how, because after all, we did learn from the best.
Relive the stories from the most prominent celebrity home in history.
From those of us that lived it,
The employees that worked it,
And the guests who loved it.
and
The
Mayhem continues.
Rogue Bunnies Mayhem. I love saying that. I can't say that enough. That is so much fun.
I was making sideways eyes at you.
It's a blast. I mean, look what we're doing here today.
With us tonight, we have Scott Page.
Dude.
This is absolutely a bucket list moment for me. For the listeners who don't know, Scott Page, genius saxophonist. Is that the word? Saxophone.
You're too kind, my friend.
Dude, Pink Floyd, Supertramp, Toto, and
Okay, so we're also brought Megan on the show because
Yes.
one, I can't be on a couch with three dudes. It's just not gonna happen. And the sexiest
it's like-
woman here in this club, just rocking out to you.
Well, she-
Seriously, Scott,
Definitely
she was
making me smarter.
So Scott, this was the most amazing event, and
That was a
I
fun
can't
night,
thank
man.
you enough to let us be part of this.
Well, to be truthful, I'm actually blown away what you just said. Thank you so much, man. That was that's for me is probably that's the most important thing, right? Because what's so interesting is the only thing that's real is us talking right now.
Yeah.
2 minutes ago is an illusion. 2 minutes from now is an illusion. So just to share this moment right now, and for you to say that to me right this moment, I mean that's a big deal, brother. I mean I really, you made my night by just saying that because it's like. This was a great night. We've got, this is like we're building right now. So we're building the communities in this space. And I love Victoria because she's just
because I wanted to ask that. How did that all start?
Well,
like you said, you're building on this.
So actually, let me tell you how this all went down. So we're clear, right?
Yep.
So anyway, I've been very vocal in the NFT space.
Yes.
We just put on a conference in Denver called Future Shape 360. I did 4 days at South by Southwest. We did the NFT LA. We handled both the 2 nights. We did our Floyd show, and then I produced a night with Steve Aoki. And so we've been in this space, and so we've been doing all these telegrams and all this stuff. And so the whole thing is building audience. So tonight was started because it's around the syndicate. That token. So myself, along with Dylan Berry and our buddy over at Green Rabbit, we decided to build the coin. And so whole thing is bringing all these different audiences together and bring them under the NFT, that token. So I met during NFT New York, I met Victoria that night as we were putting on an event in New York during NFT New York. So we had a night in Soho, so we took this building and we took it all over. It was a 5-location art walk, NFT art walk thing, and we had the whole thing was crazy. And so they came to there, and that's where I met Victoria. And I liked her so much because she's a real good businesswoman. She's solid, right?
Oh,
she's
yeah,
like a solid.
100%. Yeah.
And so we started talking. I saw the Rogue Bunnies thing. I went and started following him because, to be honest, I'm building community, right? I'm a business guy. I like doing business, but I love people. I love being in the game, and I just love the fact that the energy in this community of all the NFT space it's like nothing can imagine. Because right now, if you look at the world, it's falling apart around us. Right now, the world's falling apart, but
100%.
we're in a growth space. We're in a place to make sense, and I just love the concepts of NFTs. I mean, you can build business models on them, and rights, roles, and permissions and things that you can do with them so you can build story, and they're great loyalty programs and tokens, but they're about building community. They allow to build the community, and people get to own a piece of that community. And so there's so much because we can lift all boats, right? Because NFTs represent freedom. They represent freedom to the people. I mean, at this highest level, I don't care what business you're in, what it is, everything will be NFT. It's a thing of freedom. It allows us to take back the power of the currency. like we've never had before. We're at a very incredible time, and these are the pioneers. These are the people. We're trying to bring people in. Come on in. The water's fine.
This
You
has been written
want to
in
go
the
make
history
some
books.
money? You want to
This seriously will be written in the history books. What's
Yeah.
going on right now?
Oh no, this is such a
is
big
the future.
deal. It's a big deal.
Fiat currency has been the standard for hundreds of years.
And
It's
that's
crashing
done.
right now.
Let's
It's
be
done.
honest.
Yep,
it's
it is
done.
crashing and burning.
Fiat currency is done. It is completely done, and they're crashing. They want it to be done. We're at a very touchy point. You got the central banks.
Yep.
They have a system. They got their CBDC, the central bank digital currency, whatever that is, CBDC,
yep,
right?
yep.
And they want us to get on that. We do not want to get on that. We do at all costs. We do not want to be on a centralized blockchain.
Thank you.
That is the worst thing that could ever happen to humanity. It will destroy humanity because it puts the power in a couple guys' hands to say, "What did you say? You know that thing you were going after? Sorry, declined."
We're going to take a quick break. I
Decentralization
want to get
is
back
the key
into
to
this.
that.
I want to get back into this.
Well,
Let's take a quick break.
The big takeaway before we go into the
Okay.
break is that Scott did a whole lot of work, but we get to cash in on all the fun tonight.
So anyway, we brought the Rogue Bunnies. We brought all this stuff together. Tonight was a monstrous night, and we pulled it off. Good job.
All right, so let's take a quick break. We're going to be right back. You are listening to Rogue Bunnies Mayhem.
Hi, I'm Victoria Fuller, Miss January 1996. My bunny sisters and I have joined forces, or should I say, have gone rogue, to revamp the heydays while forging forward into the future. Yes, I'm talking about the metaverse. So come join me and our sorority of the sexiest ladies on the planet. I promise you won't be disappointed. To join the party, find us at roguebunnies.com. That's ROGUEBUNNIES.com. Get in the game. Build your collection. Go to roguebunnies.com. You'll find us there.
Welcome to the metaverse.
Scott, you just took me on a whole, like, little bunny trail road down a rabbit hole that is like, I'm going to go on a different plane right now. And when I talked to Victoria about trying to put this party together, she had said, look, I've hooked up with Scott Page, and when you meet this guy, he is more than anything you can imagine. And you have proven that. But we also come from a world of fun.
Absolutely.
We're all part of a company.
It ain't easy having this much fun,
we're
right?
all part of a company where a lot of girls were called playmates. And we used to get to throw a lot of great big parties over at a big, huge, giant house.
Yep.
And I'm always curious from everyone's different point of views, because we've had different playmates on, we've had different persons that we've talked to that were part of that world, and asking them, because it's a segment I called Homage to Hef. If you were to speak to Hugh Hefner, was there any impact at all in your own life? And I don't think there's a single person in this entire world that says that they didn't have any. I'm just curious for yourself.
You know, obviously it was a very interesting, at the time, I mean, listen, we could go down that rabbit hole too, and I don't know. I don't think now's the time, but you know, obviously, being in the music business, we knew a lot about that space. You know, it was definitely a brand that blew up in a really interesting way. It was, you know, what was interesting it was able to take something that was always sort of taboo and kind of make it more amenable, right, in a way that people could understand it. And back in the day. Actually, my girlfriend was Cindy Wood, and she was Playmate of the Year in 1974.
Oh, nice!
Right. So I knew I was around the culture somewhat at that time.
Did you ever do the parties back in the day?
Oh yeah, definitely went to the mansion. Yeah, a handful of times, and you know, hung out in the grotto. And remember the red room and the blue room, or the red room, whatever it was.
Oh yeah,
the band room, the arcade.
Yep. So I was around those days, and it was very interesting. It was, you know, very glamorous at the time, right?
Yeah.
And the music business was pretty much in that, you know, was getting invited to a lot of those things, and so yeah. It was
there had to have
interesting.
been a sense for yourself, like, wow, look at me. There's a thing about making it right, and you get the records and you get the money and all that. But I think there's a certain status of where you get to go into certain places that not everybody can walk into.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, and here you are on
You're
the
being
famous
welcomed.
grounds. Yeah. Where everyone's thinking, oh, wow, I can't wait to meet so-and-so here or so-and-so there. You realize when you walk down, they're like, oh my gosh, that's Scott Page.
Well, let me just say this. I guarantee you will not find a more grateful, thankful human in the planet. You just met him right now. I'm very thankful for all this. That was all right. So no problem. No, I'm very thankful. I mean,
You got everyone all cheered up. You got someone coming into studio turning lights off.
I won the lottery, man. I had the best parents. My parents were just unbelievable, right? So I was in a family that was totally loved, and my dad was a serial entrepreneur, and he played on a show called the Welk Show, which was right. I was around
You're
during
taking
early
me back to my
TV.
grandparents.
I was all
spending the night.
I was all around early television, so it was all that kind of stuff, and so I grew up in a thing. And my dad, we had boat businesses, lighting businesses, candy businesses. He was one of the actual inventors of the wah-wah pedal, the famous guitar pedal, and Sound City, the recording studio I grew up, because that was called Vox Sound Lab. That was my dad. He started all that, the first amplified instruments and all of that stuff. Oh yeah, I mean, the whole thing. I was at Sound City all the way, for many years. And so I've just been very lucky to have had parents that my dad instilled a business thing in me, right? Because he was serious, and I loved music, and I studied to be a draftsman, so I was a draftsman all the way through, up until high school, and then I got in a band, and then in college I switched over to being a full-time musician. Because I got in a band with the guys Jeff Beccaro and David Page when we were kids called Merciful Soul Band, and those guys became Toto later. It was that thing. So I was the early predecessor to that. And that got me really excited about music business because it was funny. I was sitting in a company, working for a company called Audiodyne, drawing and drafting, and that was when you had to use a ruler, real shit, man. Triangles and straight edges. You had to know how to twirl the pen and with them you had to constantly get the pencil right, So, and I would draw exploded views. That was my thing. The motor was kill all the parts out, right? And I had that down pretty good. I was pretty good at that. And I drink tons of coffee all day. And then I get in this band with all these guys, and it's a kick-ass kid band. I'm the worst guy in the band, right? So we were playing all these bands with this band. In the band, we were winning all the battle of the bands. We were like on fire. This band was like smoking. And I realized the front row was filled with girls. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to be a musician. I'll let somebody else.
And that's why everybody gets into a band.
So what I did in college, I just said, okay, I'm done. I'm going to figure out how do I make a living? And because I was good with a straight edge and stuff, I learned a music copy. Because that was a business you could do.
That makes sense.
So in other words, when a composer would write something, and I worked for a guy named H.B. Barnum. He was a very famous, arranger and composer and films and all that kind of stuff. And so he would call me up at midnight and say, dude, I got a session at 10. I got this chart. And he'd hand me the freaking chart. I'd go to his place, and I'd get this chart and come back, and I'd sit up all night, and I'd copy the first trumpet part, the second trumpet part, and write all stuff, and like no sleep, and end up at the session at 10 a.m. to hand over the stuff. But I did that, and so I figured out how to take my art to make money. Why? Because I couldn't play good. I sucked. And I was a trumpet player. I didn't play saxophone, so I was a trumpet player at that time. And then, so then...
the evolution.
I know, it was evolution.
Yeah.
And then I just ate, drink, sleep, music 24/7, man. I studied with all the best teachers, and I went home every night after gigs. Every gig I would go to, I worked, because that was, you could work 5 to 7 days a week playing gigs and make enough to make your nut, right? So there was work. Now it's so different. The whole thing has changed around so much. You can't.
Yeah, the economics.
It's pay to play, and the economics are just not there. It was $50 to $100 to play a club gig then, and it's still $50 to $100 now. Right? It's like stupid. Yeah. It's like, what? How did that work? Yeah. So anyway, I just flipped into that and just went hardcore for a long time, and then I finally got good enough to get a couple gigs. I got a good big gig with Seals and Crofts. Remember those guys?
Oh yeah.
And went on, toured, got a chance to tour the world, and that was the first sort of inkling of this rock stardom thing. A little bit of that, and from there it went. Got to Supertramp and played with a whole bunch of different people, and then I got the call to go play with Toto again. And the funny part was Jeff Beccaro. When we were kids, we played in this band. I remember pulling the seats out. I had this old 57 Porsche, and we pull the seats out of it, and we pour those drums in, and we get in the car, and we go dry places to play casuals. right? We played those were like parties on the beach, a wedding or something like that. And all I remembered, he took off. He started to be doing Sonny and Cher show, and then he went to Steely Dan record. He became one of the world great drummers. In the back of my mind, I was sucked, man. You know, I was like this rotten trumpet player, right? But I always wanted to be there. So it was like that thing in me that said I could only. And then the day I got called to play with the band, it was like, oh my God. It was like, oh, I got good enough to get the gig.
Yeah.
That was like a magic moment, but I was scared to death. I was like, yeah, I got the gig. And then I was like, oh my God, I got to go in there and I got to play with these guys, right? Because they're like legendary players. They're as good as it gets, right? And Jeff being my guru and stuff. And so I remember, this is a funny story. So, I mean, I practiced that music. I learned that music, man. I spent hours and hours every day over it again because I wanted to make sure when I had that shit down when I go into rehearsal. Like, I mean, I was a fanatic about, like, I didn't care how many times I learned. I just wanted to make sure I didn't screw up because I wanted to go in strong. So I go in there, I got my rig all set up. We're at the first rehearsal, and the first thing Jeff does, he hands me a cowbell.
Well, because we all need more cowbell.
Right.
The cowbell.
And we played a tune. He said, okay, you play this. And I'm like, okay. Right? And I'm starting to play this thing, and we get done. Afterwards, he comes over to me, and he was so happy because the groove is everything to him. If you don't have a groove. Now, I ate, drink, sleep. I lived with metronomes, and I had one of the first 5 Linn drum machines. I was a fanatic about the time because time is everything about time. It's if your time is better, you play better golf, you sit a better club, you think you're much better in the sack, right? I mean, there's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of things that happen, right? Because
is that true, Megan? Is it all about timing?
Right?
Oh, timing,
rhythm, time, all that stuff, right? So I studied that very heavily because that's me too. I'm a nut for that. I'm the drummer's asshole. Like if it's not swinging right, it's like. It's there. So when we played with Toto, so I remember on that gig, people asked me, what was the best thing about playing with Toto? I said, I got to play cowbell on 4 songs with Jeff Beccaro. And they didn't understand that. It's because I swear, man, he'd be sitting there, and this guy's legendary time, right? The feel. Yep. And when you really start getting into time, you don't hit something. You feel it sink into the metal. You feel the part that doesn't hit. It's called the lope. There's a dead air before it snaps, right? And you feel that dead air just in the silence. And there's just something about the way it's done. So he would sit there and we'd play, and I would, every night, that was my favorite thing because I get my cowbell. And he's there, and I was up on my riser, and we just lock eyes, right? And he would bap, bap, and we would just sync where the sound, it was like one thing together. It was better than sex, man. I'm telling you, because...
How dare you?
No, seriously.
I'm convinced.
You know,
better than
mesmerized right now. I think I came like 2 minutes ago.
That's funny. But you know, that's what it is. It's like you connect at that point at the source, and that's where the language really happens, right? And that's why records from the past still stand the test of time, the ones that happen. And right now we've got the machines. We're victims of overchoice. That's my whole thing. It's like they fix everything, they do stuff. Now there's some really good music and stuff, but there's a soul that's missing in a very interesting way. And I actually recognized it this year for the first time during the 2 nights we did at NFTLA. So it's very interesting. We did our first night, we did our Think Floyd show, and it was all the NFT people, and we had, I mean, every one of the domes had different sponsors, and they were all set up. It was like incredible. Outside the domes were all projected by all the men. It was like this crazy thing. And we went and did our Floyd show and stuff. And that night was extraordinary in the energy level that you could feel in the space. The next night, we did Steve Aoki. And I'm not saying anything's bad about Steve Aoki. I think he's an incredible guy. But what happened was, you felt, it was the first time I was actually, because nothing changed. The venue, the lighting, the sponsors, everything happened. The only thing changed was the music, because of that. And I went, wow, there's a interesting thing that's going on in music that makes people move. Yep. Like they're dun dun dun, but it's almost like it's trance, like in a way, but it's not that soulful connecting with the source. And that's what makes like Floyd records, Stone records, Beatles records, all these records. They stand they just stand the test of time, right?
Agreed.
And that's what it is. It's that interaction. Because when we used to make records, we'd go in the studio and everybody, I like it, and the drummer's playing, and we're all there, and we got headphones on, and we're gonna rock, right? And you'll cut like 3 times in a row, right? You'll cut the tracks 3 times in a row, and we'll go in and say, okay, let's listen to those. You listen to the first track and you go, yeah, okay, and then you listen to the second and you go, whoa, that track had everybody lifted, because what happened is while we were playing, we kind of all locked into a zone where it was like you weren't thinking of anything else. You were just playing, right? Just vibing, just censoring. And that's really what meditation is, right? Meditation meditation is about stopping thought. Every meditation points to the exact same pointer, to a space where there's no mind. And they always talk about it's awareness, right? But the puzzle that we have to go through is, how do I know I'm aware that I'm aware? Once you figure that one out, that's the Holy Grail. So that's the first thing to solve. How do I know I'm aware that I'm not aware? Because I had spent 2 years, and I read a book called The Power of Now 60 times in a row. I read that book 60 times in a row, and I listened to it in my car for 2 years. And every time I got in my car, I would pray for traffic, because I was in my shrine, and I would say, oh, good, it's a 90-minute ride home. Me and Eckhart, man, for 90 minutes, man. And I would just I meditate with my eyes open, like I'm meditating right now, in a sense, because it's about being present in the space, right? And being here with you. And I can see I'm here with you right now, like really well, right? This is it. This is the only thing that's real, right? That book. And now here was the funny story. So it was like April 9th at 10:12. 2011. I wake up. First of all, I was feeling pretty spiritually good. Life was good. I was happy, meditating every day. All this stuff was going on. I thought I had this figured out. 60 times the book, I thought I understood it. So the thing is, the minute you understand it, you've missed it. That's a pointer. The minute you say to yourself, oh, I understand that, you missed it. Because you cannot understand it, you can only know it, and that's the piece that you're trying. You spend all day long like, oh, dude, how do I find that space? How do I do that? Right?
That's the lope.
And that's the lope. It's in that space. And so by taking, why I think I was susceptible to this is because I took it. My career was all about going very, very deep on something small, as opposed to learning a lot of wide things. So I would take I remember this guy was working, when I finally got into saxophone, this guy named Jerry Jumonville, who was a great saxophone. I was doing a record date playing trumpet with him it was a Bonnie and Delaney album, or Delaney and Bonnie album. It was Delaney and Bonnie.
All right.
And after the session, we hit it off, and I went to his house, and I sat in his chair. I was the trumpet player, he was the saxophone, and I just sat in his chair, and that guy sat there and he played 4 hours of saxophone to me. I didn't believe it. He played every Fathead Newman, Lockjaw Davis, Ben Webster, Ike Quebec, all these solos over and over. And I went, whoa, I got to play the saxophone. I went out and bought a saxophone the next day, and I went and spent the next 6 months with him. And what we would do is, and I didn't know how to play the saxophone, so he showed me, and then I just practiced, and we would just take things. But because I already had the musical sense and had a thing, it was really just learning to adapt to the thing. So I had a basic thing. And we would sit there and we would take a 4-bar phrase, whatever it was, the phrase, like of a Hank Crawford solo. And we would play that solo over, that 4 bars, over and over and over again for hours. Same phrase, for hours. It's almost trance-like, till the point where it sounded, every note that I played, inflection would be exactly the same as his note and his inflection. Right? Like really exact. Because as you become more, you focus so hard on trying to hear that nuance that the nuance gets deeper because you're becoming so attuned to it. And then you're just doing everything you can to just try to slide that thing. It's just so perfect, right? And so it becomes this thing. So that practice, I think of that was a very meditation. It was a form of appointed meditation. Right? It was exactly what it was. So now I equate that back when I meditated. That was what was the thing that got me going. So that to me was, I learned more by taking those 4 bars in so many things, the phrasing, the timing, the things, the feeling behind it. What did it feel like? I almost felt like him. My soul almost changed over to his because I got to feel what it like to play like him. And he was one of my heroes, right? So it was like, whoa, that was a trip. So that pointed thing, and I really tell people that I think that's a really important thing to do. in general is to think about taking something and going small with it, and going down deeper and deeper. Because what you'll find, just like reading the book 60 times, every time I read it, it was different, right? And it's always different. It's always different. It's an approach, and I think it can work for certain people really well, and so you can really learn a specific thing, right?
Scott, thank you.
That was crazy. We went down a rabbit hole.
I think we just went down a huge freaking rabbit hole.
Let's bring it back to. Of course,
we're building a team, man. We're building right now.
Yes.
So we're your Rogue community. We're building with my Think community and our Rock Money community and Meta Noise and our Future Shape 360 Pete folks. The Syndicate token is going to kind of ride over the top and be its little thing, I'm hoping, and that's the goal.
If I wanted to go online to learn more about the Syndicate token, what would I do?
I think it's the TH3 syndicate.io, and so there's some stuff there, and there's actually an entire white paper and everything about that, but that's not online yet. We're just getting kind of rolling. Tonight was a night to get people up and getting certain people onboarded and just start getting the conversation going, and then we're going to get everybody moving them along in new ways to think about new things.
Absolutely.
Well, on
save humanity, right? Save freaking humanity.
On behalf
at least
of,
for a while.
How does everybody follow you on social media?
Everything is IAM Scott Page. So at Instagram, IAM Scott Page, and you'll find me. Follow me. I talk to people, so you can VM me, and I'm like, I'll try to do it. Sometimes I'm a little slow, but I do. I jump back in and say, yo, and we talk. And sometimes I've incredible relationships I built.
We hope you'll come back on the show too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Megan, how does everybody follow you?
My page is Megan Louise 217, and
I love that Scott's putting in his phone right now.
He is right now. He's following me. What I took away from this was, I've been to church, I've been to spiritual retreats, and I think that just sitting down and listening to another human being speak about what they're passionate about really tells you why we're here and what we're meant to do, and the connections that we can really feel. I could have went to a Sunday service, but I got more out of this conversation than I could have gotten there, and I really just appreciate everything that you had to say, and it touched my heart. So I'm so happy. I thank you.
Well, here's the deal. All of us, our only job on this entire planet is to help consciousness unfold. That's it. There's no other job. All this other stuff is great. It's all fun and play, but at the end of the day, that's your job. That's it. And so how is it going to unfold, right? What side are you going to fall on? The dark side or the light side? I'm a light side guy, period. That's where I'm at, right? I understand the dark side, and there's a value because you can't see the light unless you see the dark, right? It's all one thing, right? So, but yeah, that's we can go down that rabbit hole for a while too. All this stuff is my favorite subject, right? So.
But the sun is coming up on Sunset Boulevard, so we've got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Scott, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm Scott Ramsey. You are.
I'm Brian Olea. You're Mr. Mayhem, and the Mayhem continues.